Hi, I'm Barb Haselden with No Tax for Tracks, and today we have a special guest, Devin Henderson. And Devin contacted us through our No Tax for Tracks Facebook page recently, and I would characterize Devin as a disgruntled PSTA bus rider and a very, very bright young man that we've had some great discussions. So, Devin, how often do you ride the PSTA buses?
I ride the PSTA buses 7 days a week, primarily to get to school.
Oh, primarily to get to school. Well, I know that you were having some many issues with PSTA's service, and when did you first try to get to the customer service as a frequent rider, and how did that work out for you?
I'd say the first time was well over a year ago, and it didn't work out at all. It still hasn't worked out. They couldn't care less.
Well, how would you say the staff at the headquarters treat the customers coming to place a service complaint such as yourself?
They don't. They're not concerned with it. They treat you like you're a second-class citizen, and your complaints don't matter.
How has the board treated you? Because I understand you actually went before the board. We might talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but how has the board received you, the PSTA Board of Directors?
They've pretty much ignored me.
And Mr. Brad Miller, who is the CEO of PSTA, I know you told me that you had tried to reach him when you couldn't get satisfaction. What were you told there?
I was told that Brad Miller doesn't talk to the riders, that he has operations managers and directors that handle those kinds of things.
And how did you do when you contacted the operation managers? And
I've contacted every single one of them to no avail. Nothing's worked out, and Brad still won't talk to me.
well, kind of on the same note but a little different, how have you seen the riders on the bus treated?
We are treated pretty much like second-class citizens, treated very poorly. They're very rude to us, and really just don't care what we think.
I'm sure that's not across the board, but I know you've had plenty of experience,
Sure, I mean, we'll say the majority of the time.
really. Do you see mismanagement in the way the routes are scheduled as, are there improvements that you think could be made without much money being spent?
Oh, most definitely. There's improvements that can be made with no money spent. Customer service, it doesn't cost anything to be nice to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Well, as far as the routes are concerned, do you see changes that could be made to the routes that would not really call for a lot of money to be spent, that would improve the service for the riders?
Oh, most definitely. Some of the buses that run empty all day long, they could be easily taken and put on the routes that are so overcrowded that it's unsafe to ride on them. That doesn't cost anything.
Mm-hmm. What routes would you specifically be referring to?
Well, I'd say in particular Route 444 in Pinellas Park. I never see anyone on it, yet Route 52 is constantly unsafely overcrowded and runs over a half an hour late on a 30-minute route.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one example.
Now, 444, I think you told me is in your own neighborhood.
Correct.
Yeah. So you're very familiar with 444.
Oh, I've ridden 444 quite a bit, and often I'm the only person on that bus, as opposed to the 52, where a lot of times not only is there only standing room, but there's your elbow-to-elbow standing room.
Well, Brad Miller, I believe, through his people, somehow or another, and you'll have to explain this maybe, asked you if you wanted to be on, in order to appease you, if you wanted to be on the Transit Advisory Committee, and what happened with that promise. Now, the Transit Advisory Committee is actually, as I understand it, it's like a 15 or 20-year-old PSTA committee that recently, about 2 months ago, was reworked by Mr. Miller, and all of the people who were already members of that committee were basically told that they would have to reapply to be on the committee. Those were the seniors. And so those folks had been meeting monthly for years. And now he's going to reshuffle that committee. And when you were complaining and doing, what you were doing that you just explained, then they said, well, maybe you should be on the Transit Advisory Committee so to appease you. So what happened with that?
Sure. Yeah, well, and they've done nothing but try to pacify me. When it comes to the Transit Advisory Committee, um, they've delayed picking the committee over and over and over. I was told that I was going to be assured a spot on there because of my ideas, and every time I've called, they've delayed picking the committee. Then they canceled the very first committee meeting. So to me, it just shows that they really don't care what the riders think.
Mhm. Well, didn't you tell me that there was a time when you actually asked them if they would go and ride with you? What happened with that?
Yeah, I sure did. The first time I asked them, well, it took a while. I had to pull some teeth to get them to agree. But once they did, the first time they just left me there. They didn't show up and just left me there high and dry.
Hmm. So when they, I guess you must have rescheduled that, and they went and came and rode with you on the bus, and
Yeah.
did anything good come out of that? Was there any results out of that?
No, they did come and ride, two PSTA staff members, and basically all they did the whole time was give me the excuses for why things aren't running right. They didn't have, matter of fact, what they told me was as of right now, there are no changes at all in mind, particularly for Route 52. So nothing came of that. They just rode.
Hmm. Did someone say to you, and you don't have to mention who it was, that they were trying to make sure that you were not so unhappy that you would start a bus riders movement?
Yeah. That's what they said to me, that they didn't want to see a movement start. They said that while handing me a few bus passes, of course.
Oh.
But yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, they said that.
yeah. Would you say that empty buses are common? Have you noticed that as a frequent bus rider?
Oh, sure. It's a big problem, in my opinion. I mean, there's empty buses all over the county. There's buses that carry very little people. Rarely has anybody on it, but they just ride them around all day long.
Hmm. I've been ridiculed by PSTA for bringing attention to the black windows. And yet, when we first started talking, you brought that up to me about the black windows, and I was surprised when you brought that up, because I said, gee, I say that and I get ridiculed. So what's your take on the windows? You brought up the graphics also.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the windows seem to be getting darker and darker all the time. And besides that, that's when they're putting advertisements all over the windows. We can't even see out.
Oh,
Anyway, I
really?
mean, it's hard to see out. I mean, it's not a very pleasant ride when you have the Amscot guy slapped against the window and you can't see past him.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I never thought about
Yeah.
that. Oh, okay. So, PSTA says young people today do not want to own a car. They say that. They say that people do not want to own a car, and they don't want the expense of a car, and they want to live and work in a walkable area. And I wonder, do you feel that way? Do you want to own your own car someday? Or do you want to depend on public transportation when you get out of school and obtain a good job? What's your feelings about that?
Well, yeah, I want to own a car. I don't want to rely on public transportation. It has gotten me nowhere, and it's actually made life just that much harder, having to rely on public transportation. I know of nobody that rides the line because they want to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, PSTA would say that that's because they need more money. That if they had more money, that they could give you a more sterling experience. And do you feel that PSTA, what do you think about them advocating for the Greenlight Pinellas sales tax increase referendum to increase their bus system and to build a light rail? Are they capable of managing a project of this scale, and do you think it would deliver better service or dig a deeper hole for the county and for the taxpayers?
Yeah, I'm completely against Greenlight Pinellas. I do think it would put us in a bigger hole. PSTA has proven to be untrustworthy, even with the funds that they have. I'm just completely against it. With the funds that they have, they would be able to run a good bus system if they would do it properly and responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think giving them any more money would help the situation out at all.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't need it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we really appreciate you coming forward and
Sure.
talking about this, because What we're talking about here is that we're simply residents of Pinellas County, and Devon, we agree that what we want is a public bus system that will give great service to the folks who have no other choice, that they need to depend on public transportation at one point or another in their life. For some reason or another, perhaps they need to depend on public transportation. And we want to be sure that that is clean, safe, reliable, dependable, and well-run. And so we really appreciate Devin coming today and telling us his experience with PSTA. Thank you.